Hello, everyone. This is Pras, and I have been given the very difficult task of hosting this because Andy is still in Europe and his European adventures continue. But I will let Andy introduce the stream as usual.
Hey guys, welcome to a new episode of the Burning Questions series. Today we might have, a little bit of technical difficulties, hopefully not too many. But yes, I'm still in Europe. I'm in Cologne, Germany right now, obviously in a hotel room, but good to see you, Pras. How are you doing, my friend?
I'm very well, and good to finally see you over the weekend. So we can't not start this stream without talking about the weekend events and sort of how it went. So you take it away. How was your weekend in general? And then obviously we can talk about the Sky stuff as well.
Yeah, I mean, like a fairy tale, right? I think Saturday was probably one of probably the greatest Saturdays I've had in a long time. Everything was just surreal and it all just kind of came together, if you know what I mean. So for those that may not be aware, we were on Sky Sports on Saturday morning talking about FPL. And then, we'll talk more about it. And then I went to the Spurs game where I knew it was like Son's 100th goal, but I wasn't really thinking too much about it. And then that whole game was a blur. I was with Baker and FPLTT as well, two really good guys in the community. And then at night, obviously, we had a small gathering of some FPL friends. And it was a fantastic time as well. So, yeah, I really enjoyed the Saturday. I think just going to London for me as well was super amazing. Made me want to reconsider my future, and I definitely want to come live in London at some point in time. So, the biggest thing was like for me, I just felt a sense of family, if you know what I mean, Pras, because this is a country I came to for the first time since 2006. And I don't really know anyone, right? I might have a couple friends from the past that might live in London, but I don't really know many people in London. But to, feel like you and everybody else was like almost like friends I've been meaning to see, even though we've only interacted on Twitter and stuff. And the warm embrace I've got. Thank you to everybody in London. It was an amazing time. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean FPL meets guys showed up. Nima obviously pulled through as usual, but
Yeah.
I think I think the element of anybody in London and by the way meets is global, so these things happen all the time. It's so easy to strike a conversation with people that you have even not even interacted on Twitter. I mean, if you've interacted on Twitter, it becomes maybe even easier. But because there is a common thread running of an interest and passion for football and FPL, that it just having gone to many of these meets, I can tell you that it's just very easy, very welcoming, and it's not even about people sort of taking FPL advice or anything. In fact, we hardly talk FPL, but there is that thread that sort of joins you, that you're all fellow geeks and are waiting for the next deadline or who you captain next. So it's great, yeah. And coming to Spurs, so this was your first Spurs game, I take it, right? And I mean, you've watched Sun before, but it was the first Sun goal for Spurs that you've seen.
Yeah, so living in Asia, you don't get an opportunity to go to European football matches.
Yeah.
I've been to surprisingly, I've been to a couple La Liga games. I've been to Champions League game, but I've never been to a Premier League game. So I have a lot of bucket list Premier League games I do need to go to, including Manchester, and so on and so forth. But I definitely knew at some point in time I needed to go see Sun in a Spurs jersey before, whatever happens in the future, right? But to be there for this game was super special. And I didn't really think much about it, but it seemed like a lot of the community was very happy for me to be there to watch that goal. And so that was it was not just the goal, but the amount of people that were happy for me to be there that made it even more special. So thank you to you guys. Again, it was Baker who organized it, and TT who came along. And as you mentioned rightly so, Nima, thank you, Nima, for organizing that night event with other fellow managers, FPL fella, Pricey, Plonker. I'm missing out on a couple names. FPL
Surya was
Trophy Mom
there,
was
all
there as
about
well.
FPL.
Yeah, and all about FPL as well, Surya. So
Trophy,
just an
Mo.
overall amazing day. Yeah, and that Spurs game, cherry on top of the ice.
Yeah.
or yeah,
Cherry on top of the cake. And the Sky Sports thing. I mean, look, I mean, we have said a lot on Twitter already, and there was so much love, right? I mean, when you and I were when we just finished it, I mean, we could see the amount of notifications. People were just so happy to see people who they interact with, and they, basically we're one of them. There's nothing special
exactly.
here. We're geeks just like everybody else talking FPL, and to make it from just talking FPL to going to the Sky Sports studio is so surreal, man. I mean, the
Yeah.
studios are amazing, and we got to see sort of where Sky Sports News is presented, got to see where they do Soccer Saturday, and it was a great experience, and ultimately got to talk FPL. I think the show is pretty good for those that haven't checked
It's
it out.
great.
It's
Yeah.
on 10:30 a.m. on Saturday, so basically 30 minutes before the deadline. And Flapjack made a comment that we were nervous about the deadline. I mean, I was exactly that by 10:50 I was thinking, oh my god, that there's going to be a news that's going to break out, a leak, and we won't know it because we're here standing in the studio. But thankfully there was nothing.
No, we have a lot. We have a lot to digest here, Pras, because yeah, guys. By the way, so just to put into context how I don't know about you, Pras, but I was incredibly nervous. Like going into it the night before, I struggled to sleep because I think the nerves were getting to me. And then you go there and you realize this place is massive, right? It's literally a
It's a
university
campus,
in
yeah.
it's a campus, yeah. And we were sort of kind of didn't have much time to prepare. I think we went and did a little bit of makeup, and then we're thrown into the fire almost, right? Not in a bad way, just like a little bit of like, hey, what this is what's going to happen, and this is what the show's about. And we went into it, but when like right now, even when we first started burning questions in front of a camera, it's nerve-wracking. In front of a live, YouTube audience is nerve-wracking. But when the camera's flashing at you and it's bright lights, it's a totally different feeling. So tell me about your experience. But for me personally, when it was 3, 2, 1, go, I sort of kind of went blank for a bit. And it was only after like the second or third question I sort of found a rhythm where I was like, okay, let's just be comfortable and just try to like focus on what the questions are about, what Haley's asking, and
Yeah.
and try to answer the best of my abilities. So that was sort of the experience I had. How about yourself,
It was
Pras?
similar. It was similar. I think the first couple of minutes was completely like an outer body, like what are we doing here? And it was less about answering the question than am I standing correctly, am I answering properly? And like a lot of people made comments that you and I had hands in our pockets. I didn't even realize it.
I didn't
It was,
realize that.
yeah.
Yeah.
Obviously something we'll get better at, if we get a chance again to do it. But no, I think I share everything that you said. But after a few minutes it got comfortable because then we were talking about a topic that we are comfortable talking about,
Yeah.
and there was nothing overly complicated. It was to the mass audience, so it wasn't that we were talking about probabilities of blank game weeks in 7 game weeks from now. It was more simple questions. So but I think it was a lot of fun, and people that haven't checked it out, it was at 10:30 a.m. on Saturday, and they'll be doing a regular series, not with the both of us every time. They'll keep switching guests, but it's great for the FPL community to have people who they know, and for others who will get involved to do this on such a big platform.
Yeah, I just wanted to give a shout out, Pras, for Mark and Nick who brought us on board. Really appreciated you guys. Nick's been a longtime watcher of Burning Questions, which is kind of very honorable for us and surreal. So thank you, Nick and Mark. And do you want to tell the viewers about what happened once we were leaving the studio? I think his name was Sam.
I mean, it's a little embarrassing. I mean, I
Is
mean,
it?
couple of people sort of saw us on TV, and they said, we watched the show, and when we saw you, and another guy in the mall was like, I just saw you on Sky Sports News. But it's fine. I mean, I think that's fame getting to our head. We shouldn't sort of,
No, no, no.
but it
Yeah.
was really awkward. Like it's never happened. So, definitely something that was very odd to see people recognize us that they just saw us on TV. But let's move on. Let's move on.
Yep, yep.
Okay, so we're back. So if you didn't want to hear the intro, you have skipped the first 10 minutes. Obviously, we'll timestamp it. So let's
Hmm.
go to now the topic for today, which is basically talking about free hits, because a lot of people are debating between free hit 32, free hit 34, even though some people had committed to free hit 32 with the Rashford injury update, with Shaw potentially being out. People are thinking, do we need to actually get Man United players, and or should we just hold on to our really well performing Arsenal players? I mean, I know Saka got a couple of one pointers, but in general, I think Arsenal are doing well. So they're thinking maybe we just hold on to Arsenal, not go to Man United, and continue on this path and maybe free hit in 34 or 37. So we're going to do a deep dive, burning question style, on each window. What you should think about if you're on free hit 32, if you're considering free hit 34, what you should think about, what is the path that you could take in either of these free hits. So let's go to our first slide. And this first slide is basically the fixture ticker if you were free hitting in 32. And by free hitting in 32, what you're essentially doing is you are ultimately saying that the teams that I want to mainly target that are at the top of the ticker are Liverpool, Man United, Brighton. And simple reason being that Man United and Brighton have two more doubles, while Brighton have three more doubles. And Liverpool have this very nice double in game week 34, which is both home games. And we've seen how Liverpool do at home now. So I guess what we'll do is, by the way, we'll talk about the fixture ticker. Then we'll discuss a free hit team in game week 32. And the idea to discuss a free hit team in game week 32, and then we'll do it again for game week 34, is to basically for you to think about your team and how close you can get to that free hit team, whether that's 32 or 34, and that'll sort of get your juices flowing on what is the better route for you to take depending on that free hit. You obviously won't have all the 11, but you can get as close to it as possible. So
Hmm.
the path that I'm looking here, if I'm on free hit 32, this is, by the way, the template. This is why we're starting with this. Most people that have wildcarded in 26, this is the plan. And a lot of people that bench boosted in game week 29, this is their path, because in their bench boost, they committed because they sold their Arsenal players like I did. I sold all three of my Arsenal players for Man United players. And that sort of almost committed me to a game week 32 free hit. So selling Arsenal, potentially now going forward selling Chelsea, because Chelsea is third bottom in the fixture ticker. Selling your Leicester. Leicester are fifth bottom in the fixture ticker if you're free hitting in game week 32. And potentially even selling Brentford, because Brentford have no further double game weeks coming up, and they've got difficult fixtures away to Liverpool, away to Spurs, away to Chelsea, if you can call a Chelsea fixture difficult, and home to Man City. So it's basically involves selling these four popular teams at the moment, which is Arsenal, Chelsea, Leicester, and Brentford, and you buy the obvious picks, which is Man United. Now, question mark which player you buy from Man United if you haven't already, and you buy Man City, and we will come to Man City. So before I move on, what are your thoughts in terms of free hit 32? Any other teams that we're thinking about here?
No, I think well put. I think most of us are on the path of a free hit 32. Obviously, we have loaded up assets in Manchester United. We don't have Man City assets right now, but we're thinking about bringing in Grealish right now, which is +2 in him and Holland. Obviously, I have Chelsea as well. So I think Chelsea for me was the sort of the main reason I needed to go to free hit 32. And then we have three Brighton assets that we would definitely want for game week 33. So it's the fixtures surrounding game week 32 that makes free hit 32 worth it. I think one of the points you made earlier, Pras, about looking at your team, comparing the free hit 32 template to a free hit 34 template and sort of seeing how you can navigate it ultimately comes down to not only the quality of players you have, but for example, you might be able to forego a free hit 32 in order to free hit in 34. And then maybe you could compare the amount of fixtures you can get from a free hit 32 versus a free hit 34, if you know what I mean. Even if it takes a -8 or -4 in a game week 32 to get to 9 or 10 players, that might add up to 6 or 7 or 8 more fixtures in 34. So I think the best way to think about it, as you mentioned, is to really compare the free hits in 32 and 34 and see where you can end up with the current team that you have.
Absolutely. So let's go to that free hit 32 team. But before we do that, I just want to also highlight the issues if you go down this path.
Hmm.
So the issues of this path is basically you're pretty much saying no to Arsenal until the end of the season. I mean, maybe you'll get to 1 or 2 in game week 37 or 38, but you're pretty much saying goodbye. And the reason for that being that this is the last week that when they have a fixture that you really want an Arsenal player for a while. And I'll tell you why. Because West Ham away is should be a lot of goals. West Ham looked really terrible in the last game against Newcastle, at home as well. And this is again going to be a similar situation where they're going to be at home, but they would have played on Thursday. So this game is on a Sunday. And Arsenal would have rested for the whole week waiting for this game to happen. So that's the fixture that if you have your Arsenal players, you should really profit. But after that, game week 33, well, assuming you're obviously free hitting in game week 32, which is the Southampton at home game, then in game week 33, they play Man City away. Now, in that case, I don't think Arsenal assets a priority. Of course, they can do well, but I wouldn't, for example, have a defender. I mean, you saw what Man City have done tonight. To timestamp this, by the way, we're recording just after the Man City Champions League game against Bayern Munich. So
Hmm.
33 looks not a fixture you want. Now, 34 is home to Chelsea, but 34 is also the double game week. So you will want, instead of, your 7 attackers will pretty much be maybe 2 Man City, 2 Man United, 2 Brighton. That's 6.
Yeah.
So is there space for who am I missing? Um, 2 Brighton, 2 Man. Maybe you could get a fourth defender, for example, or a second attacker. So maybe there's a space for one Arsenal attacker, but not a lot. So it's not like you can attack a Chelsea home game because there's other doublers.
Hmm.
Game week 35, Arsenal away to Newcastle. So that's a single game week, but then it's away to Newcastle. Again, do you really want to push on a lot of Arsenal assets? You could profit, but it's not the easiest. Game week 36 and 37 are again going to be doubles. So you will have a double for 36, triple Brighton, probably triple Newcastle. You'll keep your City. You'll maybe want to keep your Man United, who are Wolves at home. Maybe
Hmm.
you keep Salah, who's Leicester away. So you can see where I'm going. That Arsenal attackers could be good, but there are other teams that could also be very good in 36. 37 again, double for Man United, double
Yeah.
for Man City, double for Brighton. So
Hmm.
it's only in game week 38 where Arsenal are home to Wolves where you say, I have to have an Arsenal attacker. In other weeks, either you have a doubler with a good fixture, or you could have a single game weeker like in game week 36 where Man United is home to Wolves. So that's the issue. You're going against Arsenal with logic, but there's a possibility you don't get any Arsenal. The other issue with game week 32 is you're locked into Man United players. And this issue is,
Let's talk about Arsenal just a
yeah,
second, Pras, if you don't mind.
yeah.
So obviously you've laid it out really well, and we're well aware that they have single game week fixtures left, and the fact that you went through every single fixture shows that it's not looking great in terms of who they play versus the doublers and the other teams, and as you mentioned, the real estate involved in the midfield. What would be the counter argument to that? Is there a way for you to sort of argue for these Arsenal assets to be in the midfield, like excluding Jesus and everyone up top?
I think Jesus and Saka are or Martinelli, if you wanted to go there. There's
Hmm.
there's always room for this team. I mean, you saw how they were against Liverpool in the first 30 minutes. I mean, they were blowing them apart.
Yeah,
Obviously, the
yeah.
tide shifted and then Liverpool took over. But this
Hmm.
team is a good team. It's one of the best attacking teams in the league. Defensively, I worry. I wouldn't want an Arsenal defender going forward. But I
Hmm.
think from an attacking perspective, they can they can score a couple against Man City away and Newcastle away. They can thrash Chelsea 4-0. So
Yeah,
I think there's no doubt that you're taking a big risk against going against Arsenal. But what I'm trying to say is maybe you could do that, and if there's something somewhere where you wanted to take a risk, I think this is a place that you could. But for people who don't have a free hit, who want to keep Arsenal, I think there's nothing wrong with it at all.
yeah, yeah. Southampton 32 as well. So yeah.
Yeah, so this is why free hit 32, you get 3 Arsenal, which we'll come to. But around that, maybe it's not the priority. But the second issue is getting stuck with Man United players. What's going to happen is we're now, I can take my example, I think you have as well, Bruno and Shaw
Hmm.
and Rashford. Now, you have a problem where Bruno, you don't know where he's playing because he's playing really, he was basically a DM against, who did we play? Everton.
Hmm.
But he was very good, so that's a separate argument. But the point being now, if Casemiro and Eriksen are back, maybe he's pushed forward, maybe he's not. Maybe he's just so good that Eriksen plays that number 10 or Sabitzer plays and we're a little bit more cautious about starting him. So you're now stuck with Bruno because you're in this strategy where you're free hitting in 32, you have to free hit, you're stuck with him. You're not selling Bruno until game week 37 because you'll be enticed with the two doubles.
Yeah.
Let's say now Rashford's injury update. Now this evening there's some updates that the injury is not as bad as feared, but we don't know what that is. Game week 34 is only 3 weeks away.
Yeah.
So you might be almost forced into saying, okay, Rashford's almost back, but in game week 34, maybe he's not fully back. And you end up getting one game and that to a 60-minute sub because you are stuck with him and you don't want to sell him because he has another double coming in game week 37. Similarly, Shaw. So there is an issue here where if you're not on a free hit 32, you can start saying, I'm going to sell Rashford for Grealish, Rashford for Martinelli or Saka, and so that I don't need to free hit in game week 32. But people who have committed to a free hit are going to be hesitant. So that's basically my second issue. Do you want to say anything about Man United?
No, I think I'm just watching out for the Rashford news. It seems like he's going to be back in time. So even if he's not back for this game week, we got the free hit next week. So I think we'll get to that argument about him and Grealish and transferring him out. But the Shaw one, I think the injury news will be updated tomorrow from what I'm reading.
Yeah, yeah. So we should get an update. But my broader point is what I'm saying is you're sort of stuck with your Man United players, where others can be more nimble and get the right Man United players in game week 34. Let's say if Rashford is still out or
Hmm.
is looking, you can have a setback, and people who are free hitting in game week 34, you can get the right doublers, and that right doubler could be Martial for 1 week
Got you. Yeah,
or
yeah.
Anthony for 1 week, which you don't want
Mhm.
longer term, and you just want to keep Rashford longer term, but only in 34 you can get that. So that's a disadvantage of 32. And then the last one is, I mean, Mo Salah is looking better than ever in terms of how he did against Arsenal. I mean, in fact, he recorded the highest XG that he's ever recorded in a game. So it feels wrong not going for Salah against, he's got two away games that are around game week 32. Obviously, people who are free hitting in 32 will get him for Nottingham Forest at home, most probably captain him. But then the
Mhm.
two games he has around that are two away games, but it's Leeds and West Ham.
Yeah,
So
beautiful.
Leeds have got Firpo on the right hand side, West Ham have got Cresswell. I think Salah's going to eat them alive. So you know what I mean. Like people who are free
Mhm.
hitting in 32, they will hesitate to sell Kane because he plays Bournemouth at home. If that is the
Mhm.
setup that you have, and so they may not have Salah in time because they will think I'll get him in game week 32 anyway. So that's I think
Yeah,
another big con for free hit 32 where people in free
yeah,
hit 34 can just go for him now.
yeah, yeah.
Okay, so let's get to your free hit team, which is basically a one that we've put together. This is typical burning question style, just as a guide. It's not going to be the team that we go with. In fact, there's a lot of time and more information to come to decide on this. But just reading it out for the listeners, I've got a Crystal Palace goalkeeper in goal, Johnston. I think he started the last one. A lot of
Hmm.
money in the bank because I've got Pope as the second keeper just in case. I think this backline of Robertson, Trent, and Trippier will be popular. Some may look to maybe not go Trippier because he's got Spurs, but I think given Newcastle's form and given how good Trippier is and high owned, I think that will be the backline to go to. And for Liverpool, I think Trent and Robertson work for this 1 week because it's just very hard to say who starts between. So Salah is nailed, but between
Yeah,
Gakpo, Diaz, Darwin Nunes, and Jota, that's two slots. And I haven't even
yeah,
counted Firmino, who's unlikely to start given his leaving. But 2 out of 4, it's a 1 week free hit. You might as well go for Trent and Robbo home to Nottingham Forest. So in midfield, this is going to be an interesting one. At the moment, I've got Salah, Saka, Martinelli, and then Madison and Olise. I mean, we'll see how Leicester react after Dean Smith's appointment. And then Olise is just a form pick at the moment. In
yeah.
attack, we've got Jesus, and he's paired with Solanke, who plays West Ham at home. I mean, this last striker spot is open. You could go for a Tony, who's first bench here. You could go for Kane if
Watkins even.
even
Yeah.
Watkins. So there's lots of options. But
Mhm.
essentially, people who are now not on a free hit, and that's the idea why we're showing this. People who are not on a free hit, your path basically involves keeping your Arsenal. So instead of three attackers, you could equally have one defender, two attackers. Let's say if you're sort of building towards a game week 32 non-free hit, you'll definitely have a Trippier. I think having a Kane is not the end of the world. If you've got Kane in your team away to Newcastle, it's not ideal, but Kane is Kane. He does well in
Mhm.
any fixture. Um, and then basically you build towards getting a second, a Salah and another Liverpool defender. You've
Mhm.
covered most of the bases, according to me. So it's not the end of the world if you can get to a team with about 7, 8 of these players. Ulisse is not mandatory. Madison is not mandatory. If you have a Watkins
Mhm.
instead of a Solanke, like you said, I think it's fine. What do you think?
It is, but I think most of us already just have one Arsenal midfielder now at this point, you know?
Yeah, but we've
So,
committed. You see,
mhm, mhm,
I'm talking more broadly for people who are sitting on 2 or 3 Arsenal, maybe who
mhm.
haven't yet got Haaland. I mean, think about
Yeah.
whose example can I use? Flapjack. I've seen his team. He didn't. Oh, actually, he's gone for Haaland. There's other players who basically couldn't get to Haaland that easily,
Mhm,
and they decided not to get Haaland, and they are again taking a punt that against Leicester he doesn't get 90 minutes because he played
mhm.
90 minutes tonight, and so they're thinking we'll just not get Haaland, keep Kane, and therefore I have that one extra player if I'm not free hitting in game week 32. Similarly,
Yeah.
maybe instead of a Bruno they went straight to Salah when they were upgrading Saka in game week 29. So
Yeah.
now they don't have a Bruno Fernandes, so they don't need that Man United blanker. They already have a Salah. And so you see where I'm going, that they don't need, they're already better set up than maybe you and I who committed to a free hit 32. And therefore, it's a viable strategy that they don't have to free hit and give me 32.
No, I totally agree. I think the basis that you need, the base coverage you need if you're not going to free hit in 32 is, really focus on the Liverpool and the Arsenal fixture, Southampton and Nottingham Forest at home. Those are, let's say high chance of returns for the players you bring in from Liverpool and Arsenal. But the rest of the teams are sort of kind of fillers, if anything, and you're hoping for a Trippier something against Tottenham, even though Tottenham not necessarily screaming, good form right now. The Crystal Palace Everton one, you just never know with the fixture like this, even though Crystal Palace is in form right now. Madison against Wolves, it's not really screaming. You could easily go the other way and have a Wolves asset in against Leicester, for example. So yeah, as long as you can get to a certain amount of, let's say, Liverpool and Arsenal assets, then maybe that's a viable strategy. What would you think the minimum amount of players you need in order to cover a non-free hit 32 would be?
I would say 9, 9, 10.
Mm-hmm.
So, I
And
mean,
if you got there with like a -4, -8, would
nah,
that be
I
okay?
don't think in a single game week hits need to be avoided.
Mm-hmm.
And the other thing is, I think you could take a hit if you're not. We'll come to free hit 37 discussion. But I mean, now that you've asked the question, let's say you're deciding on free hit 37.
Mm-hmm.
Then I think a hit is viable, or even 2 hits are viable for getting Liverpool players.
Yeah.
Because Liverpool play Nottingham Forest at home, they will be in every free hit, 3 Liverpool. And you'll see
Mm-hmm.
in free hit 34, they will also be in that free hit because they have 2 home games again in game week 34.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're taking a hit to avoid a free hit in both those weeks, and or maybe you don't have a free hit, then I think it's pretty viable to take hits for them. But if you're taking a hit for putting the 11th player, that is Madison, who's basically going to be semi useless. Hope I don't know. Maybe again, as I said, Dean Smith changes things. But from past 3 games, if he's not going to be as productive, then that's not worth the hit. So it'll be, and plus you have to think about there's a lot of good strikers right now that may be okay to play, right? So you could have instead of Madison, Olise, and Solanke, you could have Tony and Watkins, perfectly
Watkins,
fine.
yeah.
So I
Perfectly
don't
fine.
think there's an issue at all. Instead of Jesus, you could have a Gabriel or a Zinchenko, perfectly fine. Instead
Yeah.
of a second Liverpool defender, you could have a Botman. Not ideal because it's Nottingham Forest versus Spurs, both home games, not the end of the world. So quality over quantity as ever, but I think there's a if you cover the big bases, if you cover the captains, you've got Salah, Saka, Martinelli, or maybe Odegaard instead of Martinelli, double attack basically, then I think you're pretty much covered. So I wanted to make a case that it's not the end of the world if you don't free hit in 32 if your team is such, but in most people's cases they've got 3 Brighton, they've got Haaland, they've got Rashford, they've got Shaw or Bruno Fernandes. That's 6 or 7 players. What you don't want to do is start now changing your plans. You start selling Rashford and Shaw for other players, or you start selling your Brighton players because you want all of them back not just for 34. Maybe if you free hit in 34, you'll want them for 36 and 37 because Brighton have another double in 36. Man United have another double in 37. So
Mhm.
I think that's on free hit 32. Let's go to now free hit 34.
Okay.
So same fixture ticker, but now we've removed game week 34. So there's some subtle differences now. If you're free hitting in game week 34, suddenly Crystal Palace become a good team to get. And you can see that there's a Roy Hodgson effect, that the team is doing better. And I'm not suggesting you triple up. But basically, this means that because you're not free hitting in game week 32, you get that Everton at home fixture. So Olise was on our free hit. You could target him because he plays Everton at home, Bournemouth at home, Forest at home, Fulham away, Wolves away, Southampton away. As good
Yeah.
as it gets in terms of fixture ticker. So you could look at something like that. Liverpool, as I said, are again important. So getting Salah quickly will be important. And here, the subtle difference is Arsenal is now in the middle. So you can easily hold your Arsenal players. They don't have to be a sell because they get this very nice Southampton at home fixture, and you've removed the Chelsea at home fixture in game week 34. You probably don't need them. They're still
Mhm.
harder games, but it's not as bad as if you were free hitting in game week 32.
Mhm.
What else stands out to you?
Mm.
I guess Man City as well. Man City are now, if you're free hitting in 34, they're not
Mhm.
a priority. So you don't need to be going for a Jack Grealish. Maybe even you can avoid getting a Haaland. Now, I don't myself, my heart doesn't prescribe to going against Haaland, but if you're of the type that can survive a Leicester at home game and instead captain Kane or somebody else, then I think you don't have to sort of jump on Man City until game week 33 or even game week 34. Game week 35 because you'd be free hitting in 34. So you straight go to Man City when they play Leeds at home in game week 35. Then they play Everton. Then they have a double, and then they play Brentford. So you basically delay getting a triple up from Man City until game week 35 after your free hit in 34.
Kane too. Maybe you can keep him.
You can keep him until game week 33. So yes, that's
Mhm.
indeed an advantage. You don't. So for example, this week, I think Kane at home to Bournemouth can match Man City at home to Leicester. I mean, can match against Haaland is laughable for anybody, but it's still a good fixture versus let's say 60 minutes for Haaland. And then in game week 33, when Haaland plays Arsenal, Spurs play Man United at home. So I guess those are similar-ish, but yeah, you can get to keep Kane a little bit longer than others.
Yeah. Yeah, I think the main difference is Arsenal and that Southampton fixture in 32. Mm.
Correct, correct. And well, this is for people who don't have Haaland, so you will buy in theory, or you don't have as many Man United players, so in theory you will have your more of the Arsenal boys.
Yeah.
So I guess the other issue is that in this scenario you might have to start selling some Brighton players because as
Mhm.
you see in this fixture ticker at the Brighton are third at the bottom because you've incorporated the blank. So you could think about maybe selling a Brighton defender. You could think about selling one of the midfielders for another Arsenal midfielder at the moment. So
Yeah.
it gives you different priorities, but the issue is immediately after your free hit, your priority will be to get Brighton back because
Mhm.
Brighton has the double in
Or
36, double
yeah.
in 37, so you will still want them pretty much after.
Mhm.
Um, and that's sort of it. My other worry is game week 37. If you're not full, if you don't have your three Man United, three Man City, three Brighton, then game week 37, you'll be slightly behind the free hit 32 curve because those guys have all of them and they've basically just taken them out in the free hit 32. And remember, free hit 32 is the opposite of 37 because all the teams that blank in 32 are the teams that double in 37.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's one slight issue, that even though you can free hit in 34, you will possibly not be as well set up for game week 37. Fair?
Yep.
So let's look at now a free hit 34. Now, the beauty of the free hit 34 is obviously things change, right? It's not that we can make one today. You'll sit in game week 34 a day before the deadline, listen to Pep's press conference, and get the ideal three Man City, the ideal three Liverpool, and the ideal three Man United, and the ideal whatever Brighton. So this is the team we've come up with, which is Edison in goal. You've got again Trent and Robertson in defense. You've got Luke Shaw, assuming he's fit, and Estupinian. Now, in this
Mhm.
setup, you can make Estupiñán into Ake, you can make Edison into Steele. So it's not as important who these players are. It is important that you get double Liverpool, you get Man United defense, you get Man City, and Brighton defense. Then in
Yeah.
midfield, again, it's a five. So you've got your double Brighton midfielders, you've got Bruno Fernandes, you've got Salah and Grealish. This assumes Rashford isn't fit. If Rashford was fit, I don't know how you fit him. Maybe instead of Grealish, maybe instead of a second Brighton mid, although I don't see people doing that, maybe instead of Bruno Fernandes. But this is the dilemma in game week 34, where who do you fit in if you have a fit Rashford? And then for strikers, not a lot of strikers are sort of an option apart from Haaland, because Tony doesn't double, Aston Villa doesn't double, um, Chelsea doesn't double as well. So, Fulham double, but you're not going to pick Vinicius. Man United, there's no striker. You're not picking Weghorst. Maybe if Martial is fit and he's first on bench here. Um, Again, from West Ham, that double, it's a horrible double. Man City away and Crystal Palace away. So you could maybe look at Antonio, but he doesn't. Ings, if he's nailed down the spot. Long story short, it's probably going to be a 4-5-1, and this is what the team looks like. So, what are your thoughts on the free hit team?
Yeah, I mean, there's other options that you can work around with in the defense and keeper. For example, you could De Gea, for example, and bring in a Stones or a City defender that you like. In the midfield, I'm surprised like you had a hard time putting in Rashford. I would just automatically put him in whether
No, no, no. This was assuming I made this before the injury update. So I was assuming, let's
right,
say
right.
he's out of game week 34. I mean, who
No,
would
no,
you
I'm
put
saying
Rashford in for?
yeah, that's what I mean. I like regardless of who you put in for, he would definitely be in the starting lineup for me. So I guess it would be for a Brighton midfielder. Um, and then up top, you've got the options of Darwin if he becomes an option. Maybe Jota becomes an option. I don't know. Maybe Ferguson's a left field punt. Yeah, fairly template, but I guess the advantage is that you'll have more information by the time you get to free hit 34.
That'll be the key for game week 34. Basically, you'll be able to, while people are building towards this. So now let's talk about people who don't have a free hit in 34. I think they're pretty well set with three Brighton. They will have Salah in place. I mean, they will have to make a decision between selling Kane or not. And I think pretty much most people will make that decision that they want Salah for the double. They'll have Haaland. They'll have. They may not have a City defender because it'll be tough to sort of switch around that late without
I
hits.
think it'll be tough. Yeah.
Yeah, they may not have
Not
Liverpool
Liverpool. Yeah.
defense. Some could
Mhm.
get to Robertson or Trent, but it'll need a hit. But they will have a Man United defender, assuming Shaw is fit. They will have a Brighton defender. They will have a five midfield. I think five doubling midfield most people will get to, assuming Rashford is fit, and they will have Haaland. So I think the real upside is the City defense, and maybe double Liverpool defense, which I would almost call them attackers, especially if you looked at Trent against Arsenal. So
Okay, so for non-free hitter 34s, if let's look at each transfer, Salah would be priority, right? But I'm saying from here till the game week 34, we've got a free hit 32 plus two other maybe two transfers, three transfers. It would be Salah priority, and then what would be your second priority? Liverpool defense or someone like Grealish? Obviously, there's a lot of factors here, right? The fixtures leading up to it and this and that. But if you needed to bring in players from here till game week 34, who would it be in order?
Well, I think for sure Salah. I think depending on Rashford's fitness, people may look at a second attacker from City, so Grealish could be an option.
Mhm.
Um, Apart from that, the third transfer can be what you can afford. So, like for me, I might get to a Martial if Rashford is out easier than I can get to a Trent, but I can get to a Trent as well. Now, the one
Yeah.
problem, by the way, for free hitters in Game Week 34, which I haven't talked about here, is Newcastle are home to Southampton.
Mhm.
So if you're sitting there and you're saying, I need to take a hit for Trent, right?
Mhm.
But then that would mean that I have to bench Trippier at home to Southampton. That hit is not going to pay off.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
then if you also add the fact that you will also have Newcastle having a double very soon again, you're
Yeah.
not going to sell Botman or your share or whoever you have as your second Newcastle defense. So you will struggle to find space for Trent. Let's say in the template you go Chilwell up to Trent. But as I said, you will then start Trent, Shaw, and Estupinian, but maybe you start Trippier as your fourth defender instead of Robertson. So that's doable, but it'll need a hit. Or you just say, just chuck it. I'm going to start my double Newcastle defense, and I'll just sort of go against the Liverpool defense, who play Spurs and Fulham, who are both reasonably attacking, and it's not like they've been rock solid defensively. Have Liverpool, so you could potentially look at maybe double Liverpool defense against double Newcastle defense
Yeah.
for non-free hitters.
Yeah, it's there's a similar dilemma this week for Grealish buyers as well, because you could easily play your Brighton players this week as well. So yeah, interesting.
Well, if it really depends on the team, right? So not everybody. So like I have, when we'll come to my bus team, I have Barnes who plays Man City, and if Rashford is also out, then Barnes to Grealish becomes a no-brainer.
Brainer, yeah.
So because you want your fourth midfielder. If Rashford is fit to play Nottingham Forest, then you can just hold your transfer even. So that makes sense, and we'll come to our bus team and discuss our dilemmas, because you've got Martinelli, who you'll obviously play, so you don't have to have Grealish this week.
Mhm.
All right.
Okay.
So before we go through, so this path obviously then means that you keep your Arsenal longer. So we've gone through the pros and cons. There's another one, which is Game Week 37, and we've not put together a Game Week 37 team simply because we don't know what we will know at that time, right? We don't know
Yeah.
if Man City are in the final of the Champions League and Haaland gets, basically is treated with cotton wool, and Alvarez becomes an option for Game Week 37. We don't know if Man United are through to the champions, have secured a top four position, and Rashford gets no minutes, or very limited minutes, because they're still in the Europa League final. We don't know if Brighton sort of are on the beach by then, because at some point, they're given a disappointing loss against Spurs. The odds for them to qualify for the Champions League are getting lower and lower. Maybe they would have secured Europa League, and then there's not much to play for. So we don't know all this. So a Game Week 37 is like a wild card free hit, if you know what I mean. Like, you just take in the information at the time, and your strategy would, until then, would be simple. You keep your double triple Arsenal, and you believe in the fact that Arsenal will continue to do well, especially in
Mhm.
attack. You load up on Liverpool as much as you can, because Liverpool are, as we have seen in this video, are in free hits, triple free hit in 32 or in 34. So if you get Liverpool players for hits and you don't intend to free hit, you will have covered those players anyway. Then you basically sprinkle in some Newcastle players that you already have in Trippier, and maybe add another defender. So if you see where I'm going, you could easily hold your free hit, if you're not free hitting in 32, for 37 instead of 34. What do you think about that?
Yeah, no, I agree, and I agree with it's so too far away. The only like legitimate argument I can make for free hit 37 compared to 32 and 34, I actually can't see the chart, is the fact that by that time we really have information is very valuable, and a lot of sort of league state changes by 37. So the free hit in 37 could be an advantage there. I don't think the doubles are as enticing because there's only what four, and all the teams play each other, and Chelsea, Man City, United, and Brighton are all involved. So that it pretty much eliminates one fixture out of the doubles, but at least you do have Man City and Brighton and United playing. So yeah,
Good point. Good point. I mean, you remember, I think you and I both free hitted in Game Week 37 last year, when Ings was
yeah,
going mad, Richarlison was going mad, Madison did really well. So
unpredictable.
yeah, so
Yeah,
it does get unpredictable, and so theoretically, the more goals start to happen, because
yeah,
some teams are just not in it. But this year could be different. I mean, there's about 8 teams fighting for relegation. Maybe they're all sort of, it's very, very tight. So maybe it could be different in Game Week 37 this time.
yeah, yeah.
All right. So that's it. That's what we wanted to talk about. Today's agenda was simply to talk through the free hit, to sort of crystallize your plans. And the main reason for doing that is, if you are free hitting in Game Week 32, you have to commit to making a transfer this week. You have to, because you cannot roll your transfer and then free hit, and because you lose one. So
Mm.
it's almost like you're forced into choosing a path this week. Like, for example, people who are not free hitting have to decide that we're going Haaland-less again, or if they are free hitting, then they have to get Haaland this week, or they should get Haaland this week, given he'll be again, I think, widely captained. So this is the week to decide your path if you haven't committed already, and we wanted to sort of give you just some thinking points and your path to do that.
Yep.
My bus team.
Okay, go ahead. Yeah.
So I have at the moment Pope in goal. I'm playing Trippier, Chilwell, and Stupinian in defense. I've got March, Mitoma, Bruno Fernandes, and Rashford in midfield, and I've got Kane, Haaland, and Watkins up front. So obviously the Shaw and Rashford injury is critical. If Shaw is fit, then I'd rather play him over, let's say, Stupinian. Um, if uh, if Rashford is fit, then I don't need to make any transfers here. But as I mentioned, there is a transfer that you need to make, so it could be maybe Pope to Edison, or I'm thinking Barnes to Grealish. So if Rashford, and most likely Rashford will not be fit for this weekend, and if that is the case, then I'll do Barnes to Grealish, and then basically be set up and play Grealish and Haaland at home to Leicester, and bench Rashford and Shaw and Botman.
Mm.
Between Pope and Kepa, I think I'm fairly set on Pope, given how much better the Newcastle defense is versus Chelsea, and how much better the attack for Brighton is compared to Villa. But
Mhm.
I think Newcastle away from home haven't been as solid, so I'm not that keen. But it is what it is.
So yeah, I think the Barnes to Grealish move is a no-brainer, regardless of whatever happens, because you do need to burn a transfer. But the one that you're itching to do is to get rid of Pope, correct?
Not really. I mean, I'm okay to keep Pope because Pope has that double as well in Game Week 36.
Okay.
Likely to have that double as well. So I don't have to. Like, I'd be happy to just do Barnes to Grealish and then just leave it.
Mm. And how about Chilwell?
I don't really have a defender I want for Chilwell yet. I mean, if I could do Chilwell to Trent for free, I would, but I can't. So
Mm.
I don't think I can get to anybody else that I want for Chilwell. Chilwell is going to become Trent later, but not
Yeah.
now.
Okay.
And that would be the thinking.
So if you keep Pope and Kepa, you're just sorry to jump back on it, but if you keep Pope and Kepa, you're just gonna play one of them as a single fixture in 34.
Pope is home to Southampton. Yeah, I'm happy to play him.
Okay. Okay. Fair, fair.
And for people who have Raya, he's home to Nottingham Forest.
By the way, what's your plan with Watkins? Are you just gonna hold for foreseeable future?
I mean, as long as the guy is in really good form, I don't think there's any reason to do anything with him.
Hmm.
But after game week 32, I think he becomes a little bit more expendable.
Hmm.
So we will see. I mean, if I need funds to make him into something else, then maybe. But I don't like I won't play him in game week 34 because I'll probably, if I get Martial for let's say Rashford is out, and let's say if I have to get Martial, if I get another attacker, um, I can see myself playing Trippier as my fourth defender rather than Watkins in game week 34. So I don't know how many weeks I'll actually start Watkins, but at the moment he's scoring goals, so there's no issue keeping him.
Yeah, very interesting.
So obviously lots to learn on.
Hmm.
Man United have to play the Europa League game. Chelsea have to play tomorrow. So we will see where we get to, but I think at the moment that's my early plans, and we will know much more about Shaw and Rashford as well.
Nice.
All right, you go next.
Okay. I think pretty similar team. I've got Kepa in goal, Trippier, Chilwell, Shaw. In the midfield, I've got Martinelli, Mitoma, Rashford, Bruno. Up top, Havertz, Haaland, Kane. On the bench right now, I've got Marsh, Botman, and Estupinan. And
Ah,
Raya is my second keeper. So I have a lot of questions actually, because I've been really thinking about this process. So there's a couple things. I really like Grealish. I would love to have Grealish, but and I love that I have Martinelli this week. I think it's fantastic that he's doing well. But the Havertz one is really bugging me, because it's just not. It's like one of those players that's in my team that's not giving me any confidence anymore. The past, I would say 2, 3 weeks, but I've had issues to deal with and hits I didn't want to take. And to be honest, like once Watkins scored this week in the 94th minute and Havertz blanked, like I sort of like didn't expect that to happen, but expected that to happen, if you know what I mean. And thankfully, Martinelli made up for the points, but I'm just not confident moving forward with Havertz. But I also do want Grealish, so um, that's kind of the situation I'm in, and I'm happy to play Marsh instead of Rashford, for example, if Rashford is out. And I'm okay to play Stupinan instead of Shaw if Shaw is out, or even Botman. Yeah. So that's the thing. Like that's why I was asking about Havertz, because
What would you do with him? So
I know.
let's say you
Yeah.
play Rashford, you play Marsh instead of Rashford, and you play Botman or Estupinian instead of Shaw. You still have to start Havertz.
I know. I know. So it would be Havertz to somebody else this week.
Who though?
I know exactly.
I mean, if you want to be aggressive, Jesus.
I mean, I was thinking about him. I was thinking about going to Watkins, to be honest.
I mean, Watkins owners are not going to play Watkins a lot more in the future. I mean, let me open his fixtures. Game week. So for free hit 32, right?
Mhm.
He plays Newcastle at home. Okay, Fulham at home is a good one. Game week 33.
33. Yeah.
Man United away, game week 34. You're not going to play him because that's a double game week. Wolves
Yeah.
away in game week 35. Okay, people will play him. Game week 36, Brighton at home, single game week. I think people will start to offload. And then game week 37, um,
36 is Tottenham, no?
oh yeah, 36 is Tottenham. So people will
Yeah.
start to offload him after game week 35. So
Tottenham, Liverpool, Brighton.
you're basically getting him for Fulham at home, Man United away, Wolves away.
Yeah. Mitrovic, if I had Mitrovic, I would go for
Yeah,
him.
poor guy. So there's not a lot there. If you wanted to, I mean, there's an argument to be made to just suck it up, play Havertz again.
Yeah, yeah. I think that's where I'll end up. If I wanted to go for Grealish, who would the transfer out be?
Not straightforward.
Not straightforward, right? Like definitely don't want to sell Martinelli this week.
No. I mean, I think it's more of a FOMO that you're getting with Grealish. Martinelli is as good as an option as Grealish. I mean, just because
No,
he's
no, no,
done
no.
well in the last.
I think I'm not comparing Martinelli to Grealish. I think I really like Grealish, so I like both. But Martinelli's you know, he's in his own category right now. I'm lucky to be have him this week. But again, because I'm on the free hit 32 plan, doesn't make sense to get rid of the Brighton players. Doesn't make sense to get rid of Rashford and Fernandez.
I mean, if Ten Hag is vague about Rashford, you could sell.
Yeah, yeah, maybe.
But then my question is, who do you get Salah for? Let's say you have Grealish, Bruno, double Brighton for Martinelli, and then when will you get Rashford?
Yeah, I know. It's complicated.
There's six players people want in midfield.
Yeah. All right, fine. So if I didn't go Grealish, who would my transfer be here? A defender? Anyways, many days to think about it.
I mean, you could get Edison for Raya. You could get Havertz to someone else like Jesus or Watkins. I think those would be the two options.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, let's see where the Rashford news ends up.
One other thing you could do, you could sell a Stupinian. I mean, let's say if you're in a situation
That
where
is a good
everybody
point.
else is
Yeah,
fit, so then you have even the option, you leave yourself the option ahead of game week 36 to get the third Brighton mid.
yeah. I mean, I could also do Chilwell out.
Could do. I don't
Chilwell
think
to
Liverpool,
Trent, maybe.
Chelsea is a priority. But you can't do Chilwell to Trent, can you?
Yeah, I can.
That's an option.
Yeah, nice. Let's see where we end up.
Okay, excellent. So that's it for this week. We have managed. I don't know how well this has turned out. If there's some lags in the video, I apologize. This is my laptop and it's not the fastest. So we'll be back to normal service from next week when Andy's back in Korea. But
Mhm.
until then, thank you very much for tuning in and for all the love that we've got on Twitter and otherwise from all of you.
Yeah, thank you guys so much. And again, apologies for the lag this week. Thanks, guys.
Bye.